All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Yard Sign. Again, the most important and relevant podcast in politics. I'm your host, as always, Johnny Torres. Appreciate y'all for watching. If it sounds a little different, looks a little different, well, yeah, we are actually broadcasting live from, whoops, my bad. Hit the wrong button over here. All right, we are actually coming to you live from the Barrymore Hotel in downtown Tampa, where the Tampa Bay Young Republicans are going to be having their, I guess what you could consider their annual meeting. They'll be having their elections. They're going to be having special guests, CNN whistleblower that you may have seen in Project Veritas. So it's going to be a very big meeting, and we're going to be here not only talking about today's news, but also giving you a little bit of a rundown as to what to expect in today's meeting. We may even record tonight's speaker and post it later on for those of you who are interested, again, in hearing about what we already know, which is basically that CNN is incredibly biased towards Republicans and conservatives. So let's go ahead and do a quick rundown of today's topics. Let's see, looking over at the topic board, let's see, impeachment. We've got, of course, a lot of movement on that lately as it's now over on the Senate side. Then we've got the Dem Primary, the coronavirus outbreak in China. We're going to talk about that. National March for Life making big news this year. We'll talk about why, and of course, Kobe Bryant, who we lost over the weekend. Sanctuary counties, all right, that's a Second Amendment issue, pretty widespread across Florida already, and whether or not Hillsborough is going to end up on that map, we'll talk about that. And then, of course, like I said, a little preview of the TBWire meeting we'll have tonight. So let's go over real quick to the big table. And joining me, a little bit of a short staff today because we're again about an hour earlier than usual. But there on the left, we got Anibal Cabrera. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Great.
All right, we'll work on the English later.
It's a little different. I apologize. English is my first language. I apologize for that.
Yeah, and then Chris VerKuilen, who again joining us now. This makes what,
Thanks
2 weeks in a row?
2 in a row.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Going for a
win streak.
Gonna go for the hat trick next week.
All about it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. Does this thing? No, that's not working yet. Oh, there we go. Oh, okay. There we go. We can do it that way. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Again, we're going to open up today's show with the impeachment. Of course, we've heard from Adam Schiff, who apparently is still talking. After about 72 hours now. I mean, the guy just apparently just loves the sound of his own voice. Not unlike myself, but of course, I'm not also in Congress and up there trying to make a case about why all this is just a waste of everybody's time.
Super somber.
Yeah, exactly. And they're trying to be all serious about it, but in the meantime, what I've enjoyed about this, guys, has been watching the ebb and flow of emotion from the Democrats, both getting excited, right, because they're trying to impeach the president here, and then the horror that this is not really turning out the way that they had hoped. So we've been hearing a lot of great feedback about the president's defense team. Of course, names that we're familiar with, Jordan Sekula, who's big conservative, also podcaster, broadcaster, and then Legal Mind. He's on that defense team, and Ken Starr. Now, Chris, I know you've been watching these a little closer than I've had the chance to. What's been your take on this?
I haven't watched Ken Starr, but what I've seen is a lot of intellectual inconsistencies regarding the law, regarding what's wrong and right. So I've seen Chuck Schumer bring up that Trump is threatening the rule of law. The thing is, when you look into that, abuse of power and obstruction of Congress are not statutory law. It's not written anywhere in the Constitution, in our body of law. So there's a little bit of inconsistency there. You have Adam Schiff saying, we can't trust the president to do what's right for this country. Yet we have our president looking into misdeeds by our former leaders. I'm failing to see a whole lot of words or principles of substance in the entire thing. I'll let you go for a minute. And
I have spent so much time that I can no longer get back in my life watching the Democratic congressional body that is supposed to be representing the House and their legal expertise blubber all over television. and just continually read off of their note cards and just say the most inappropriate things to the jurors that you would assume that they should be considered the senators. They're offending the senators. They're talking about putting their heads on a spike if they don't vote a certain way, to the point to where the Supreme Court Justice Robert had to actually get involved and make a comment and say, we're going to need to scale this back a little because it's inappropriate. Now, I never thought I would see demeanor come back to the Senate floor, but I guess it's starting to come that way.
There'll be no pettifogging in these chambers.
No petty. I didn't know what that was for a second, and so I had to Google it. Do not look up images. You get completely the wrong thing. But I feel it's something that people were not realizing that. I don't feel that the Democrats, when they were putting up their case, is arguing for for them to vote in their way. I feel that they were just going for the short clips, for them to be, they were more or less talking to their base. They were not talking to the Democrat senators or the Republican senators. If anything, they were making them more upset. So I truly feel that it's a complete waste of time. And now it's on the other foot. Now it's the president's team going to give their rebuff of what really are the facts and what's going on. And from what I understand and from what I've read and heard this last day, I feel that they're going to be focusing on the articles, which are the articles of impeachment that the House did finally give up to the House or to the Senate, which you'll see at the end don't amount to anything. You cannot impeach a president for something of Congress and
obstruction of Congress
and
abuse of power.
Technically, it's not obstruction of Congress because Congress never submitted subpoenas to the witnesses, and the witnesses never then went and pushed back to the courts. So that technically is not. That's not that one. And then the other one is contempt of Congress and contempt of
abuse of power is the other article.
We do that every day. So it's not that, I don't feel that it's that big of a deal. And also, really what we're talking about, this trial is about policy, a disagreement on policy, international policy. At the end of the day, the president was trying to figure out a way to reduce the monetary involvement that the U.S. is contributing to all these other countries, and Democrats got upset about it. This is the least sexiest thing you could have someone impeached for, was because they had a contradicting idea when it came to Ukraine.
Okay, but we've been hearing from both sides on this now. And again, the president's legal team doing a pretty good job. Of course, Schiff, I think, got what he wanted, which is basically a lot of kudos, a lot of attention, for his speech. You don't see a lot of fireworks coming out of this. I think that continues to play for the president, being that there's no major kind of groundbreaking moment in all this. I think people are starting to forget this is even going on. Is this just going to make it a bigger dud for the Democrats? Or as we're showing, I mean, there's polls showing right now that among independents, they actually don't care much about this impeachment either, and it's not really swaying them one way or the other.
So as far as the defense, I've watched the entirety of yesterday's defense arguments and the entirety of today's defense arguments. From what I saw, I think Cipollone, his emphasis was on the fact that the Ukraine aid wasn't being withheld due to the political matters. It was being withheld due to kind of a pressure to apply to the European Union to have them contribute their fair share. I mean, if you think about it, European Union is tied a lot closer to Ukraine than the United States is, and that was actually part of the phone call with Zelensky. Zelensky was agreeing with President Trump that Germany, France, all of the entire European Union should be contributing more towards their defense since they're closer to home. What's your take on that? I mean, do you think that's a valid defense, that this is more of a factor than the political aspect of it?
It is a valid defense. If you read the transcripts, which we did, you saw that President Trump was talking about the 2016 in regards to any form of meddling. And at the end of the day, that he wanted them to do the right thing. Do the right thing, not for me, for us. Do the right thing, which was counterbalance their corruption allegations that were contributing to why we were holding funds back. And two, Ukraine is not the first country that Trump has done this to.
Absolutely.
Where we're holding back money we're holding back our money to give to them. Like, I don't understand why this is such a big deal. At the end of, and that's what builds into the larger concept of this is more of like a neocon situation where it's those people that the only part of their job is to make sure that other countries get our money when it comes to foreign aid. And that's what we're seeing right now, that people are upset that you touch the sacred pig of DC, which was giving money to foreign countries, which is, again, not a winning argument for Democrats. How on earth are they going to put this in the forefront when they can't even keep a news cycle anymore? Because it's not, no one cares. No one cares.
Yeah, this isn't the first time. There's San Salvador, Guatemala,
Yes.
South Korea.
Yes.
There's about 7 examples in the same time period. There were some before, some after the Ukraine debacle began. About half of them before that we're in the same situation, but no one cares about that because there wasn't a vice president's son involved.
And then you hear these things from Shifty Shift saying that if we don't give Ukraine money, then we'll be fighting Russia here in the States than there in Ukraine. I thought to myself, is there like a Red Dawn 3 that I don't know of that's about to happen, that they're trying to figure this out? I don't understand where he must have some kind of much higher level clearance than all of us do in DC.
But you don't know that?
I didn't know that. I didn't read up on it on my morning briefings. So it's fascinating to see where this is going. It's fascinating to see what's going to happen. And I think this boils down to the fact that no one is paying attention. And if anything, the primaries are having more of an impact and more sway than anything else. So I don't know where Johnny wants to go in regards to moving forward. But do you have anything else to say about impeachment? Because I don't. But I will say this. I will say we have maybe 2 or 3 more days of impeachment conversation, and then as soon as Friday, there might be a vote in regards to
I hope so. I've gotten so, like, if you haven't noticed, I'm on this show, I'm part of this group. I love politics. I've gotten so incredibly bored with the impeachment thing. I had to bite down and study for the last 2 days.
I didn't know where that was going.
For the show. Anyway. Despite my lack of interest, I'll say one more thing about the second leg of Trump's defense, and that's been on procedural errors.
Yes.
So one of the procedural errors was the entire House is supposed to vote to give a committee the power to subpoena. That was not done. That is why Donald Trump's defense did not respond to most of the subpoenas. The subpoenas that were given, even though they were given outside of procedure, they were being appealed in the court, and they didn't want to wait for the subpoenas to be appealed. So,
again, it was a move. They wanted to get it done before Christmas. It got done before Christmas, but they completely forgot to actually subpoena anyone, which is undermining their against Congress when it comes to their impeachment requests. So,
well, I don't think they forgot as much as, they were afraid of what might have come out of these subpoenas, and especially when certain individuals who they thought would side with the president all of a sudden were very willing to come in and be subpoenaed. I think that's when they got real scared. And they were like,
it's a trap.
Right, yeah. Well, and again, any good attorney, and I'm no attorney, but any good attorney will tell you, you don't ask the questions that you don't know the answers to. And I think they were afraid of what they were going to get if they did subpoena these guys.
I'm going to say this right now. Bolton is a trap. I don't care what anyone says. It is a trap.
Absolutely.
He is selling books. He wants to make sure. What it went on sale today.
Yeah, just so happened the book that was being revised by the White House was leaked yesterday, and it happened to go on sale on Amazon this morning at 2:00 a.m.
I will say this again. Every time the Democrats have tried to bring someone on board to testify, if it was the Russiagate or if it was the special counsel, they always gave someone else the responsibility of bringing down Trump, and it never worked. If anything, it bolstered. We realized what was happening. And so they think they're going to bring in John Bolton to come in and actually speak. It's going to be a disaster. He's a very intelligent man. He knows for a fact this is the only time he can sell books in this kind of regard. So he's going to do what he can do. I don't have a problem him being a capitalist and making money where it needs to get made. But at the end of the day, if Democrats think bringing him on board is going to bring down the president, that's not going to happen. This is not Watergate. And if the moment we bring in Hunter Biden to talk about why he was sitting on countless boards just because of his father's last name, he was on Amtrak, he was on Boeing, he was doing deals in Europe all the time. He was on the plane.
Paid board positions.
These are paid board positions,
Yeah.
not like boards in Tampa where you don't get paid, but you do what you got to do to have a good time.
Which again, given his access to the president and the vice president is a huge conflict of interest. And how Republicans never managed to seize on that, again, still blows me away.
Well, you had an issue where the vice president's son had just passed away, so that was already one big deal when the revelations were happening. But then you have sworn testimony that people within inside the Obama administration were concerned about Hunter Biden and it blowing up in their face when it came to the midterms. I think 2014. 2014.
Yes.
So there is already something there. So if they're talking about doing a one-to-one witness deal either with Hunter Biden or the whistleblower for John Bolton. Again, we don't even hear about the whistleblower anymore because it doesn't matter. That is so far in the past.
The waters have gotten so muddied.
Oh.
There's so many things that have been forgotten, so many things that have been brought up and then brushed aside because it didn't work out the way the originators of the charges intended. But yeah, like you were saying, in 2014, I actually found yesterday when I was doing some show notes a photograph of Joe Biden with Hunter Biden and one of the Burisma other board members in 2014.
Because they never talked about it.
This surfaced after the claim was made by Biden that he never knew of his son's activities in Ukraine.
Please.
And this is weeks after Biden was given the reins of Ukraine policy.
Let's move on. I don't think there's
anything.
There's no need to talk about any further of this because we know how corrupt this whole situation is. And at the end of the day, I think they're talking more to their bases than anything else. If there is a vote on Friday, it might be more acquittal than because I don't think they're going to agree for witnesses, honestly, because they don't want to bring it up. They'll do one at a time, and the Republicans will never do it because the Republicans get screwed every time you give the Democrats even an inch. Don't give them anything. If you can do one-to-one at the same time, do it. But if you can't, forget about it.
All right, let's apologize to this horse.
All right, so again, I think again, I'm not going to reiterate what the metaphor just said, but certainly we'll see. Hopefully they'll bring this to a close. I don't think really no true winners out of this other than the fact that I don't think it's going to have the impact on the election the Democrats thought it would. All right, moving on to the next topic, of course, the Democratic primary. Poll numbers continue to come out that, that are really shuffling the field now, of course. Now that Bloomberg's been in the race for a little while, him spending millions of dollars already in advertising.
Hundreds of millions.
Yeah, I
Have we
mean.
reached the B's yet? Billions?
No, we haven't reached a billion.
Okay.
I think it's almost 100.
We're seeing some campaigns pull some desperate moves. Elizabeth Warren accusing Bernie Sanders of lying, of saying that she could never win the nomination or the presidency. And then, of course, Tulsi Gabbard now coming out this past week with a defamatory defamation lawsuit against Hillary Clinton for calling her a Russian asset. On more so on the Tulsi Gabbard thing, and Jake is a big fan of hers, and I like her as well. I would hope this would move the needle for her, and I think that's what they were trying to do, but I don't think that's going to happen, right?
At the moment, I don't think Tulsi has a legitimate path whatsoever into after Super Tuesday. I feel that this was a move that needed to get made because these old politicians and news anchors will constantly make these horrible comments and defamatory comments, and no one has the backing to be able to sue them. And Tulsi has the backing. She has the money. She should do it. She has it, and she should give them a black eye. At the end of the day, that's because then CNN or some of the other news outlets are going to have to either put up some money or apologize. And either way, it's going to be bad for the agencies. When it comes to Hillary Clinton, I mean, let the bag keep on singing. All I can say is, honestly, I can't wait for another video to come on her collapsing because she doesn't have the energy to be able to walk the way she is. Is that book tour over yet? I have no idea what's going on.
I think walking through the woods of Chappaqua right now as we speak.
For us, she's still the president.
For us Republicans, she's truly the gift that keeps on giving, and I think it really. I think a lot of people got in her ear after the whole Russian asset comment. And they said, look, just stay out of this. Keep your mouth shut. Get out of the way. And again, we see that Warren and Sanders are going to keep going head to head. The only person making any big moves is Bloomberg. And then Yang is actually starting to see some momentum. But again, I think it's going to be, too little too late for Yang. Bloomberg, I mean, I'd hate to say it, but I mean, do you guys really think that he is going to have a shot at this nomination, or is he just burning money?
So
No.
right now he's burning money, and I think he has to burn money because his fight is for Super Tuesday.
Well,
His
let's not
fight-
forget he was just here in Tampa too.
Yeah, and we saw pictures of everyone that attended, and we'll be making comments later on into your Facebook post because we know who attended, and there's a list. But I will say this, that nationally, Bloomberg is doing great. Locally, however, I don't think he's making much stride in regards to the first few primary states. Because if you can pull support from where he's pulling the Buttigieg votes and the Klobuchar and maybe even the Warren votes a little, and maybe even the Biden votes. But right now, nationally, Biden is still up there at 26%, Sanders at 23%, and Bloomberg at 13%, which I think is the craziest thing, that he's leapfrogged Klobuchar, Buttigieg, and Warren to be in third place with 13%, with Warren at 10%, which is crazy to see how. It's not crazy. It's what happens when you pump in $100 million into a campaign for a national. He's not playing to the local. He's playing to the national.
Well, who he is, though, is not going to fly with the Democratic Party. He is
For a percentage of them, they fly.
he is left-wing Donald Trump. He he is. He's a New York billionaire. He makes tons of money, and the core idea of income equality, the core idea of you don't deserve what you've earned in that aspect is not going to fly for very long. You can get 25% maybe, but you're not getting the primary with that.
I want Bloomberg to keep on rising in the polls because that will show the civil war happening in the Democratic Party now. You have people like AOC and the rest of the squad saying that there are no moderate Democrats, that there are no centrist Democrats, that you have to be far left, or you're not considered a Democrat anymore.
Wait. To that point, did you hear that garbage of her trying to say that the Democratic Party is actually
Center-right.
conservative? Yeah,
Yes.
Conservative, center right. On what planet? On what planet is this? Maybe in France.
This is also the woman that doesn't understand the concept of unemployment, saying that the reason why our unemployment number is because people are working 2 to 3 to 4 jobs. No, honey, that's not how unemployment is calculated in this country. But God forbid someone tell a woman that was serving drinks less than 24 months ago how to actually read a chart in regards to, and she's like an economic major.
Did she actually print that out on the internet?
I don't
Where
know.
did she get that from?
I want to see if she made that at Kinko's, honestly. So that's what's happening now. CNN has become a joke. Elizabeth Warren literally stabbed Bernie Sanders in the face at the last debate. So we're seeing this happen all over the field right now, with the Democrats fighting amongst each other, and it needs to happen. If they don't coalesce around someone, it's going to be a disaster.
It's a bad look right now, though.
Sanders and Warren people are not going to vote for Joe Biden, and Joe Biden people are not going to vote for the far left. And again, I'm happy to sit back and watch and see what happens, because I would love to see us regain the House and take more property in the Senate, and the president win the popular vote.
I mean, what's most amusing to me is also the fact that, we had Castro drop out, we had Booker drop out. These guys have all gotten behind their respective candidates. I think Castro went for Warren, right?
Yes.
Did Booker announce his endorsement yet?
Booker hasn't said who he's going to announce.
Okay, but regardless, these people have dropped out and have made zero to no impact on the other campaigns. I mean, it goes to show like just how diluted this field really is, and honestly, I mean, it's. I say Bernie takes the nomination despite the DNC's wishes. Of course, they're still gunning for Joe Biden, and I think that part of this fiasco with the impeachment is somewhat of a strategy to keep Joe out as frontrunner. But the polls are starting to turn on Biden, and we're going to start seeing more and more polls show Sanders as a frontrunner.
The country is not going to vote for a socialist, so at the end of the day, that's not going to happen. But you have to be very concerned to see where the Democrat Party is heading. Again, this country has been a two-party system for a really long time. To see a third party emerge out of the Democrat Party, it'll take 1 or 2 cycles for them to recoalesce themselves. So we could see a Republican candidate for the next 2 or 3 terms when it comes to cycles of presidency, which I wouldn't mind for that either. But we always have to be careful. Again, we as Republicans were out of power 2.5, 3 cycles ago. So we understand the concept of it, but we were able to pull ourselves back together. Even when we had the internal fighting with the Tea Party, with the Republicans. But can the Democrats do the same thing with their far left party? I don't know. I don't think they can.
Yeah. All right, do me a quick favor if you don't mind. Pull the mic just a little bit closer towards the middle, and there you go. All right, so thank you again for watching The Yard Sign, coming to you live from the Barrymore Hotel, where the Tampa Bay Young Republicans will be having not only their monthly, but their annual meeting, which means they'll be having elections today. They also have Carrie Porch. So CNN whistleblower from Project Veritas, he's going to be the keynote speaker. So it's going to be an exciting night here in downtown Tampa, and we appreciate the Barrymore. They are a great benefactor of the Young Republicans, allowing them to meet here on a monthly basis at no cost. So we appreciate their support.
They have superb quality coffee as well.
There you go. That's quite an endorsement.
They serve very good drinks, I'm not going to lie. It's a heavy pour, so I'm enjoying it all the time.
And then, all right, let's go ahead and continue down the list of topics, and maybe not a great one following the coffee statement, but the coronavirus outbreak happening in China just seems to continue to get out of hand. Apparently, they are, the government, as is able to do in China, building hospitals. I mean, literally, what's seemingly overnight, just to address this virus. Of course, they pretty much canceled all festivities around Chinese New Year. Now there's even concerns. I have family in Colombia, and they were telling me apparently they had made a deal with the Chinese government to build some infrastructure, some bridges over in Colombia. And now the Colombian government is assessing whether they should put those projects on hold as to not bring over those Chinese workers and vendors here, and possibly bringing that virus to South America as well. And there's been a couple outbreaks here in the United States.
I think we have to be very careful when we say outbreaks. So,
it's a huge outbreak.
It's not okay.
In China, it's a huge outbreak.
Well, in China, it's the epidemic of
Right.
the outbreak. But when you say U.S. outbreaks, you have to be very careful. So
Cases, all right.
Let's go through
Let's
this.
say cases.
Let's go through this real quick. About 81 people have passed because of the coronavirus. About 3,000 Chinese and other world citizens have been confirmed having the disease, and it's up to 30,000 are currently quarantined to see if they will develop symptoms from the coronavirus. It's something that's currently there are cases in 8 to 10 countries, with 20 countries currently being reviewed to see if their people that are under quarantine will actually get the full symptoms and then get classified as the coronavirus. It's something that's causing a huge panic within the Chinese population. At the moment, over 60 million people are quarantined. It is the largest human purposely quarantined event in human history. We have additional information coming out that it could be up to 90,000 people that actually have the coronavirus in the Wuhan province and the Wuhan city, which is a huge thoroughfare for the rest of mid-China. At the moment, they're considering this to drop the GDP of China by at least half in regards to it. This is we just passed their form of Thanksgiving and Christmas at the same time, so it's a huge economic blow for them. And as Johnny said earlier, a lot of countries around the world are rethinking their project details because of what's happening in China, which is something that not many people understand. They think China is increasing economic development output around the world, when really they're just shipping in their own workers to work as slaves to build these large projects.
Well, and this is what actually I explained to my family members as well, is that what a lot of these countries aren't realizing is that the Chinese government comes in and says, hey, we'll go ahead and you don't have to give us any money up front. We don't have to, just go ahead and once the project's done, you can start paying us back for these bridges, roads, whatever the project might be. And then when these countries struggle to make these payments based on whatever deal they brokered, now the Chinese government actually owns that infrastructure. And this is a way of them starting to seep themselves into other countries around the world. And this is a huge problem in Africa. And as we can see now, it's becoming a huge problem in South America. And these governments think that they're getting a great deal because the Chinese government is fronting them these infrastructure projects at little or no cost. Meanwhile, this is really how they are seeping themselves into working with foreign governments around the world.
The Brits did the same thing. The canals were a pretty big deal. The Suez Canal was something that the Brits thought they owned for the longest time, and Egypt just decided to take it from them. I think a lot of other countries around the world will do the same thing when it comes to China and their fake infrastructure. I mean, they can't even build. They're saying they're going to build 3 hospitals in 6 days. Do I think they're going to do it? Yes. Do I think it's going to collapse? Yes. So we'll see what happens in that. I will say this, though. The CDC does say that there's 110 cases currently under investigation in 26 states, with only 3 of those cases being confirmed as the coronavirus. Wouldn't it suck if you own Corona beer? Like
Maybe they'll sell it.
I think this has been a plus for
Do you
the
really
Corona
think it's
brand.
been a plus for Corona?
Oh yeah. I mean, think about it. It's all over the news. And again, especially on a weekend like Gasparilla, like we just had. I mean, it's subliminal. It's subliminal messaging.
In the Tampa Bay area, did I drink a few Coronas? Yes. Did I wear a face mask? Yes. But that's because the hour after Gasparilla started, it smelled horrible on Bayshore.
Yeah, but again, it's subliminal messaging. Again, people are saying, okay, well, this thing's not going to affect me. But meanwhile, all of a sudden, man, I'm really thirsty.
I will say, as an amateur epidemiologist,
Lord.
no, I'm not. The way we handle
Certified
things like
by
this, certified by Facebook, yes. The way we handle things like this in the U.S. is much different from how they handle it in China. Our conditions are much better. We don't have the same kind of crowded atmospheres in the entirety of our populace like China has. And also, this thing became news, 4 days ago? Think about incubation periods. This thing spread because it was spread before anyone knew what it was.
So
now that we know what it is, we can do a lot more control it.
The World Health Organization estimated that 5 million people were traveling in and out of the Wuhan area before it was quarantined. So this could blow up hugely in front of China if it really wants to get to that point. China lies to its people. This is now another thing that China has lied to its people for. Do I think they're going to blow up in regards to the population if it gets even worse? Yes, I think could become a tipping point for the Chinese people. If you go on the Chinese version of Twitter, they are pissed, and they're upset that the Chinese leaders lied to them and didn't tell them about this beforehand. So it's something that I think is growing. I would love to see what happens. Americans really don't care. At the end of the day, it is on the news. People are really concerned about it overseas. We have about 1,000 U.S. citizens in the Wuhan area and people are figuring out how they're going to get back to the States, because I'd rather have them here than there for medical treatment. But let's see what happens. Honestly, I don't want to say that I don't care, because I do. I watched Contagion over the weekend just so that I could be informed of what really happened.
You got your prep stash ready?
I got all my wife basically went out and bought stuff like if we were going to go through another hurricane. So I guess we're ready for a Contagion. We have our masks.
Garbage bags, tape.
Yeah, we were drawing pirate costumes on the mask though, so I don't know. We might have a problem.
Festivity and safety.
We're not taking this extremely seriously. We'll see what happens with China. As long as the dead do not reanimate, I think we're fine. That's the only concern. As long as there's no reanimation of bodies, we're fine.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, The Walking Dead was supposed to be a TV show, not an instruction manual. But I'm sure, especially on our side of the aisle, I think there's a lot of people who would welcome a zombie outbreak just so they have some use for all those weapons they have stored away.
Oh God, you're making it sound bad.
Sounds horrible.
It's true. Come on now.
We'll all be on the roof of the Barrymore.
That's right.
Well, plenty of aiming practice for that part.
All right, we're going to keep this train moving along as we get closer, about 30 minutes away from the start of the Tampa Bay Young Republicans meeting here downtown Tampa at the Barrymore Hotel. We've got the National March for Life, which again, last year made a lot of news when the young man, and had that kind of standoff, if you will, between, his group of high school students and this kind of Native American
the Black
gentleman.
Hebrews.
And the Black Hebrews were the ones that really instigated the whole thing.
They were the ones that started the whole thing.
But the main focus ended up being this Native American gentleman and the young kid who got into kind of this standoff, and of course, and how everybody misinterpreted that whole situation, and then eventually leading to CNN having to do a big settlement and giving this kid a nice fat check for basically defaming him on international television. This year, the big news being that President Trump. And again, I've said, you can, You can question easily, whether or not his religious beliefs are what they say they are, but he is the first president to ever attend the National March for Life. And I think that's a huge deal, especially in an election year. I think it's going to play really well to the Republican base. Do you think he's going to get credit for it? Do you think this helps move the needle more so in his direction, or just reinforces the people that were already going to vote for him?
I thought it was a great speech. It was only 13 minutes long. This year's March for Life,
which is really short for him.
I know, very short. There was about 100,000 people that attended this year's March for Life. You didn't see it on any of the main television networks at all. You only saw it on Fox News, and even then they were talking about impeachment at the end of the day. You didn't see it on CNN. I didn't see any blurbs whatsoever at all, which really upset me because they did a full-on coverage for like the Women's March and all these other ones, but the moment you talk about pro-life, it just goes to black. But luckily we have other news outlets and local news outlets and podcasts that talk about this.
Podcasts.
I know, I love podcasts. 100,000 people attended. It was a huge rally for pro-life, and the spectrum of people that were there was pretty immense. If you ever want to see the time lapse of the march, it's pretty incredible to see how many people actually showed up and attended. I think this benefits the president. I think it benefits everyone that attended. I think it benefits the Republican Party, and it's shoring up that part of the party for President Trump.
Well, this is the thing, because of course people are posting, oh, hey, the mainstream media isn't covering this. And I think what a lot of people mean by it is this, right? Can you go to NBC News and find something on the fact that the president spoke at this rally? Yes. You're going to find a story, probably 3-4 paragraphs long, talking about, what he said, the fact that he was there. But the fact is that when you have this Women's March, when you have similar marches that happen throughout the year, all of a sudden, somehow these networks feel that it's newsworthy enough to go head to head, just nonstop, no commercial breaks, broadcasting of these marches. And yet here's a march of similar stature, of similar attendance, and they'll just put it as a blurb up on their website. And I think that's what's frustrating to a lot of conservatives.
So politically, I don't care what happens from this. I think that it's good attention for the March for Life. I think it's a good set of bringing eyes to the pro-life movement. I know it's a subject that requires a lot of careful treading, and I'm glad he made an appearance there. If nothing else, it brings the focus back to the March for Life, or back to the pro-life argument. Which
you wouldn't have thought when you read the media outlets, because they were saying that this was just one big Trump rally. And if it was, it's one of the biggest rallies we've had since. But they keep on pivoting to try to make it just all about Trump, when it's not. It's about the pro-life and the pro-life movement and the multiple avenues of what that looks like. Because if you talk to anyone that was at the rally, they don't believe in they don't go to the extremes that some Democrats say that Republicans are, when we don't want any rights and don't want any kind of abortions. There's just so many layers to that argument that people don't give it credit to, because they think everything is a zero-sum game when it comes to Democrats.
I really hope it brings people to do more studying about what the pro-life movement means, the science behind our beliefs, the philosophy behind our beliefs. Donald Trump is not a philosopher. Donald Trump's not a physician. He didn't go into this kind of depth or breadth. You can't do that in a 12-minute conversation. You can spend dozens of hours on just the science behind why we think that, let's say a 24 or 20-week-old fetus, feels pain, has some sense of what's going on around it. That's part of my belief system. Anyway, if you don't believe that, I hope that this maybe invites people to think more deeply about that.
If you don't believe it, I shouldn't have to pay for it. Like we can play around with this a lot if we wanted to, but I will say this: do I think the president is? They keep on questioning him being religious or why he's in this position. At the end of the day, no other president went up there. And so, from Democrats and Republicans, no president has ever done it.
Yeah, think about the fact that George W. Bush was